We're going to talk a little bit about FileSet revisions. This was a new feature that was introduced in version 14 of FileWave. For long-time customers, you might not even know this feature exists unless you're one of the few that actually reads the release notes when they come out with the actual new version of FileWave. For newer customers, you're probably familiar with this because you probably would have been introduced to them during your trainings. All right, so let's get right down to it. Now, we're going to add a copy of Firefox here. So let's go ahead and do that. I've got an MSI for an older version of Firefox and a newer version. So let's go ahead and add an MSI for Firefox 86 here. I'll just drag it in here to the file sets area, and it will create a new file set for me. Okay. And let's go ahead and associate it with the current device that we're on right now. Now that happens to be this particular device right there. So let's add that association. And you can see it's now listed here. Now let's go ahead and save the changes by updating model. Actually, before we do that, let's verify that Firefox is not on this system. So here I am in Apps and Features. Let's search for Firefox, and you can see Firefox is not found anywhere, not listed, because it's actually not installed on the system. Now we can go ahead and proceed to update model. And we'll have the client check in so it actually performs the installation. There we go. And you can see that it's actually downloading Firefox right now as we speak. And we'll give it a minute or two to actually show up on the system. Alright, so we're up to 417, same model as the actual server. You can see it's in the middle of activating it still. Alright, looks like it's done. So let's go back and check now. We'll just switch to a different area, come back to Apps and Features here, and we'll search for Firefox again. And you can see now it's installed and it says version 86, which is the exact same version that we had created the file set for. Now let's go ahead and add a revision to the existing file set for version 89 of Firefox. So the first thing I want to do is actually change this so it doesn't reference a specific version. There we go. And let's go ahead and add that revision. And I can do that simply by dragging the new installer for Firefox 89 on top of the existing file set. So I will get prompted to actually add a revision or create a new file set. So it's actually hiding out here in the back. There we go. And I'm going to tell it I want to add a new revision to an existing file set. So I'll click that particular checkbox. Okay. Now, file set revisions basically provide a way within the same file set container to hold multiple versions of installers for the same exact app. And each one of those revisions actually has their own set of properties and has their own set of scripts and their own set of installer files. So I can show that to you simply by going in here, and you can see there's a revision pull down. Now since I added that new revision, you can see I can pick Firefox Setup 89. Let's hide all the unused folders here, and you can tell they're different simply by going in here and taking a look at the actual installer itself, the MSI. And you can see this one says Firefox Setup 89.0 MSI, but I view the one for the initial revision, it will be 86. So let's go ahead and verify that simply by drilling down here. You can see there it's a totally different file. It's even different file size. That's 54 megs. And this one is probably slightly larger, maybe. Let's take a look here. It's actually smaller, surprisingly, 53.5 megs. Okay, so let's go ahead and manage revisions here. This is where you can add additional revisions or remove them or change them So in this case, I'm going to change the initial revision here to not say initial revision, but let's call it by its actual version number. So now it's labeled 86. Okay. So now that I've got this new revision, what do I do with it? How do I tell client devices to update to this new version? In the old days, before revisions came along, you would have to create a new file, an entirely separate new file set. For Firefox 89, you would have to remove the association for Firefox 86 and add a new association for Firefox 89. And that's how things were done for a long time. But with revisions, you no longer have to do any of that. You simply change the revision assigned to that association. So there's actually two ways to have applications update through revisions. So we'll talk about both of them in order. So the most obvious one is to actually go into the associations area here and grab your association for that application and change the revision here. And you can see it says default 86 because that's what I assigned originally, right? To change the revision assigned to this particular association and only this particular association, I can click the pull down and pick the new revision, which would be 89.0, right? So that's one way to do it. Again, if I do it this way, it'll only affect this particular association. Let's pretend I had Firefox assigned to multiple groups of devices at the same time. How would I upgrade all of those at the same time and force them all to switch to version 89 from version 86? The easiest way to do that is to simply manage your versions and change the default version or the default revision from 86 to 89. So let's go ahead and do that. So I'm just going to click Properties here. And notice here, I do have a pull down here for the revisions and you'll see this for all of the various items that are associated with a file set. So properties, scripts, and of course you've already seen it for the actual installer files themselves. But what I can do in here is click on Manage Revisions again and set the new version, version 89, as the default instead. And when I do this, it will actually change it for that association also, because that association is set to use the default. Well, the default happens to be 86, but if I change it to 89, then that association will use 89 instead. And that's how I can upgrade pretty much all of my client devices, no matter which group they're in, that have Firefox assigned to them through an association. As long as they're assigned the default association, I can switch them all over to the new version. So let's go ahead and set 89 as the default here. We'll save our changes. And if I go back to the associations area and view this association, you'll see that it now says default, but it says 89 instead of 86. And let's double check here. We'll have it actually upgrade. You can see here. Let's leave this area and come back. Verify that Firefox is still at 86. Okay. Now let's go ahead and commit our changes by updating model. And then again, we'll force a verification on the client device so that it installs the new version after removing the old one. So let's pull up our client monitor again. We'll force the verification, and you'll actually see it is downloading right now, the new version. And it's going ahead and activating it to switch to version 89. We'll wait for this to finish activating here, and then we'll go back and check. All right, looks like it's done. Let's go over and check in here. And you can see now it says Firefox 89 instead of Firefox 86. And that's everything for revisions.